How did you find out that somebody?
Contacting 30% of our database.
So contacting 30% of your database. That's exactly right. Right. And so, so yes, I did press record, Kimberly. Thank you for that reminder. Recognize that that we're asking you to contact 30% of your database. We started that last Wednesday. It's due this Wednesday. So whatever that number is of people who know you, like you, trust you, and are already predisposed to do business with you, diving in and having those care calls with them doesn't need to be anything more than how are you doing, how's it going, how can I help you, right? That's what we're focused on right now. So talk to me about how's it going? What are you noticing? Anybody already done with 30% and moving on to 40 or 50%? Anyone trying to catch up before Wednesday? Anyone freaked out that they're not going to hit it by Wednesday? What kind of results are you seeing?
Rick?
Yes.
So hi. So I think I shared with you before that I've just been sharing really positive resources with my database, even before Ignite, and with a very positive response on the other end, because there's so much, you know, if you listen to news all day, it's really frightening, and too much negative stuff out there. So people are really appreciating it, and I'm being pretty conscious of the resources I get them from. So they're pretty credible resources, no crazy political stuff or anything like that. But people really, and I've had a lot of my clients thanking me because it's sort of it's sort of the light in the darkness, and they really are appreciative, and are now, in fact, a couple of them are like, what are you going to send today, you know? So I've been trying to not be annoying, but send every so many days something positive out.
You know, what's really spectacular about what Michelle just said is that she has people now who are waiting to hear from her, right? They're waiting to hear. I mean, P.S. Michelle was responsible for finding and forwarding that Samuel L. Jackson stay at home video. So with content like that, of course they're waiting for her to send it.
Which I wasn't sharing with everybody, but
well, we feel privileged that you shared it with us, because I thought it was pretty funny.
It was.
Right. And so recognize that there is. I asked a question in a training, I don't know, a month or two ago, and the question I asked was, what are you doing right now that if you stopped it, someone would actually notice? Right. And that's an important part of this kind of a conversation, in that if you're delivering things to your database and you suddenly stopped it, would anyone notice? Would anyone kind of call and say, hey, what happened to that thing that you used to do? Right? Are they anxious enough for it? Do they want the information badly enough? Right? And when it's positive information, when it's feel-good stuff, right? Especially in a time where you need more of that feel-good stuff, Michelle's delivering that message such that they're waiting for the next thing to come, right? So be really clear about how you're communicating. What else, Kimberly?
Well, Rick, I had a conversation. I had a person send me a friend request on Facebook, but we were already friends. So of course I called her to see, if she had gotten, bombed or whatever. And she said, no, she said, there's just so many people out there that are negative and everything is going badly. She's like, when I follow your posts, they're always inspiring. There's something positive. She said, so I chunked my initial friend list. Now I have a selected friend list of people who are bringing positive things to the table.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, I didn't realize that, I had that effect. One thing I did do this last week, we have an agent, her name is Danielle Turner, and she's in Alabama. Her daughter, Lana, is 16 years old, and she's in a hospital. She's battling cancer. So she's going through chemo, right? So what I was talking to Danielle said, you know, Lana's having a hard time today because with the COVID-19, people can't come in the hospital. And so she's not getting any visitors. And people, you know, I haven't been able to leave for like 3 weeks because they don't want people coming into the hospital to bring in, you know, potential diseases and things of that nature. So I said, well, what if I sent her a card? And she said, you know, she'd love that. I mean, I've never met Lana. Danielle and I are just Facebook friends because we met at family reunion. That's it. And so I said, okay. So I sent her a card. But what I did, I said, would it be okay if I invited my friends to send her a card? And she said, that would be awesome. So what I did is I'm a member of a mother's group. And on my personal Facebook page, I posted, hey guys, while your kids are home, give them this assignment, create a get well card for Lana, my friend. And I gave the story and gave an email and gave the address. She got over 200 cards.
Wow.
My friends and I mean, it was really cool because my friends in the mothers group, they took pictures of their kids drawing the cards and like, you know, had the card, you know, up here and they were showing them. And it took Lana about 3 days to get the first batch, but they're still coming in. And, you know, Lana took a picture of all the cards out on her bed. And she's like, when she got them, she cried. And she's like, can you guys, you know, if you want to do another one, send it to Lana and she'll share them with the other kids that are in the ward that she's in. So, you know, I got a lot of people, you know, when you rally somebody around a great cause right now, people are feeling helpless and they want to figure out a way to give back to someone. And for that, you know, they're like the kids, yeah, you know, because I mean, as a mom, I remember my kids were doing those handmade cards. Those handmade cards meant more than the cards they buy me now.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so I posted it, and when, you know, Danielle tagged me, she's like, here's the picture of Lana, and I'm not sure if I can post it here, but it was something that, you know, we all could do and made someone else's day brighter. That's all. Love it. Right. So great ideas. Thank you for sharing some of those things because they're simple to do, right, and have such massive effect. And remember that the business aspect of this, not that we necessarily do this for business, and yet there is a business bounce from those kinds of things as well, right? Just to kind of keep it real and balancing the both sides of it, because when you're the person who's coordinating that, right, you stay top of mind. You get the wow, what a great idea. You get the this is all because of Kimberly. This is all because of Michelle, right? So recognize that it's the human thing to do, and it's also a smart business move as well. Sometimes those two things can work together and be the same thing. I was invited last night to many of you know that I coached the Matt and Danielle Ronan in the Trumbull Market Center, and I had a call with them over the weekend to kind of work through some financial stuff and make sure they were all on board with the PPP and the SBA and the all the alphabet soup of whatever, right? And Danielle said to me at the end, I'm going to send you a link. We're doing this Zoom. What did she call it? This Zoom get to know you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And I said, well, what do you mean a Zoom get to know you? She said, well, just log in. And if you just stay for 10 minutes, just log in and see what we're doing. So I did. And it was really a whole lot of fun. What they did was they invited a small group of people from their database, right? It wasn't like the masses. They invited a small group of people who they kind of already have some version of personal relationship with, and invited them on a 30-minute Zoom call to like meet the Ronins. They cut out like the Flintstones, like Meet the Flintstones. They cut out the Flintstones faces and inserted their own faces in this picture of the Flintstones. And it was this 30-minute, you know what Kahoot is? Right? Kahoot, Kahoot,
Kahoot, I think is how you spell it. Kahoot is an app that allows people at home, like you push out questions and give them choices, like multiple choice. And from home, they can, when they're logged into your app, they can answer the questions and it keeps score and it has like a leaderboard and all this cool stuff. And so for 30 minutes, they simply asked 20 questions about themselves. Of course, what Danielle did was work in every third or fourth question or so, had nothing to do with them personally or where they lived or their kids or anything like that. It had to do with, you know, how long have we been selling real estate was one of the questions. Which real estate company do we work for was one of the questions. What specialty of real estate do we work in? You know, residential, commercial, rentals, whatever. And so she designed this fun. When I logged on, I kind of went on incognito and didn't put my face on to crash the party. But I just listened for a while, and there were 12 other families, and it was their kids and them all on a couch, huddled around their computer, like answering questions about Matt and Danielle. It was the craziest thing, and it was such a beautiful 29 minutes of community that I thought I would mention that to you, because you can do. I mean, some of the questions I've known them for a long time. I'm like, I have what size shoe does Matt wear? Doesn't matter, right? What's the tattoo that Matt has? Like, I didn't know Matt had a tattoo. Here's the point. No one was necessarily supposed to know those kinds of silly questions, but the idea of just getting everybody together and having kids kind of try and guess stuff online, doing the phone Kahoot thing was so much fun for 30 minutes. And they worked in 4 or 5 or 6 different mentions of, hey, don't forget we're in real estate. Hey, don't forget we're in real estate. Hey, don't forget we're in real estate, without saying, hey, don't forget we're in real estate. And then they gave prizes to the 3 people who got the most questions right. And it was all gift cards to local restaurants. They live in Monroe. Gift cards to local Monroe restaurants, because now they're also supporting the restaurants in their town for when they reopen, right? Giving them some cash now for the tough times, to see what's going to allow people to go when we reopen, right? So I thought that was just such a neat idea, unique and interesting, and that when there's a reason that Danielle did not describe that to me. She just wanted me to go see it, because what she knew is she knew that if she described it to me, I'd kind of make a squished up face and say, look, who would do that? Who would go on and like answer questions about you personally? And yet not judging it and just seeing it in action, she was so right to do that for me, right? So for those of you who are thinking, making that same squishy up face, thinking like, oh my God, that sounds so dumb. It's not dumb. They got so much mileage out of it. I can't wait to follow up with them tomorrow to see what else came from it. So I thought I would share that as just another connection point with your database. Anybody else getting to that 30% mark or having successes or challenges? Any challenges you want to throw out there?
Rick?
Yes.
This is Cindy.
Cindy, hi.
Hi. I've been calling my, what I call the A list, and I found that, you know, calling them and asking them how they're doing and all of that stuff, a few of them then started asking me about real estate. And my response to them was, you know what? I'm going to give you a call next week. Today, I just want to talk about you and your family, making sure you guys are okay. And I think they really appreciated that. And I will call them next week.
Yeah, I love that. That's so smart, Cindy. You know, the idea of even when they do ask, you actually put the brakes on to say, you know what, today was really just want to focus that on you, make sure that you're good. However, if you do have some questions, I will pencil you in for later in the week or next week. Like, make it more of a, this is a personal call, and I'll follow up with a business call. It keeps the sincerity of those care calls really, really front and center. I love that. Thanks for that reminder.
Thank you.
Okay, so anybody else before we push on to AHAs? All right, keep dialing, right? You've got to hit that 30% mark by Wednesday. For some of you, that's a big number, and you're running out of time, right? You got 48 hours to get that in, and I don't want you to take that lightly. I want you to take that as seriously as a heart attack, right? Really dive in and make sure that you are at 30% or better of your database, because if you don't hit 30% by Wednesday, I already told you what the next assignment's going to be, right? Another 30% in the next week. So if you're not already at 30%, well, that just gets bigger and bigger. And here's what I've learned over time. When the task gets bigger, many of you, instead of diving deeper and in to get it done, start to retreat from it because it starts to feel too big. Right? So have that accomplishment of getting that done by Wednesday so that you know that you can do it in 6 or 7 days, so that when we give you the next 30% to touch base with, you can simply look back and say, you know what, I did that, no problem. I'm going to do it again. Because then, by the way, we're going to ask you to do it again, and then we're up to 90%. Week 4 is going to be a cakewalk because you only have the remainder, right? Anybody you didn't get is who you'll call that last week. All right. Any AHAs that you want to throw out from what we talked about on Friday or anything last week? Any questions from the content? Okay, so if not, then let's dive forward, and I want to spend some time today really working through source of business. And for those of you who have taken Ignite before, source of business tonight's going to be just a little bit different, simply because I want to go through source of business and talk about some things that you can be doing right now, the way you can be spending your time, but also spend some time on some of the sources of business that may be on hold right now. However, I want you to be preparing for them so that when restrictions are lifted, we can go and hit that hard again, right? So let's start with a couple of fun ones that you can be doing right now. And I'd love to start with an idea about building an agent-to-agent referral network. Is that okay? Can we start there? Yeah? Okay. The only person I can see right now is Kimberly. So she has complete control over whether it's a yes or a no. She nodded her head, so we're going forward. So if everyone else on the call said, no, I don't think so, we're going forward because Kimberly said yes. It's your world, Kimberly. I'm just living in it. So agent-to-agent referrals. I want to give you a system that I think works really, really, really well if you will spend the time over the course of the next couple of weeks diving into this system and then communicating with the database that I'm going to teach you how to build. I will tell you the next 12 months of your business will be completely different from the previous 12 months. I did this when I was brand new in the business. Again, I started at Century 21 back in 1998, late 1998. And I was given a desk and a chair and a phone and told, good luck, right? And so I started to ask around about what some people were doing to try and get some better information. And someone suggested that you should work on referral. And I didn't really know what that meant, so I thought they meant agent referral. And so I thought, all right, well, how am I going to do that? And so in 1998, Realtor.com was really, really brand new, right? I Love Lucy was on the television, right? No, I'm kidding. But Realtor.com was really, really new. And so I thought, okay, well, I need to have access to agents in other parts of the country. And so I have this Realtor.com thing that we can utilize. So I'll look at that and I'll call them. And so here's the program that I used to develop an agent-to-agent referral network that I think you guys could dive into over the course of the next couple of weeks and really come out of the next few weeks with a solid base. So I took a map of the United States, and I went starting in the upper left-hand corner, so in the Pacific Northwest, and I just made a list of the 30 major markets in our country. And so I started with Seattle, and I went to Portland, and I went further south down into California. I did San Francisco, and I did LA, and I did San Diego. Then I went back up north, and I skipped Helena, Montana. I think I probably skipped Boise, Idaho, too, because 20 years ago, I think Boise wasn't the bustling metropolis that it is today. And then just kept going south, right? Denver and Phoenix, and you get the point, right? So work across the country and find those 30 major markets. It's easier, there's more in the East Coast than there is in the West, so make sure you don't use up all your 30 on the West Coast, because when you get to the East, there's a whole bunch more. So you have now 30 major markets, right? And so now what I want you to do is I want you to start in Seattle, right? So you go back to the top and start in Seattle and look up online. Again, I was looking at Realtor.com. So today you have an even easier way to figure this stuff out, because you have sites like Zillow. Yes, I said the Z word, but this is what it's good for, right? Sites like Zillow that now tell you how many other listings somebody has, right? When back in my day, what I was doing was I was just scrolling through listings, like putting check marks next to somebody's name to see, oh, that's somebody who has a lot of listings. Let me make sure, does this person know this person only has 2, this person has 1, oh, this person has 21. So I found the top 3 listing agents in each major market across the country. Tell me why I'm searching for listing agents if I'm building a referral business, a referral network.
Because their clients might move out of the city or.
Exactly right, right? Because they do the work that has people relocating oftentimes from where they are to other parts of the country, right? Plus, I don't know how to find buyer's agents online, right? Because you have access to listings, so you have access to listing agents when you're searching online. And so I found the top 3 in Seattle, and I would make a phone call to each of those 3 listing agents. And my phone call went something like this. Hi, no, it didn't go anything like that. It's 5:25 on a Monday, and I have no other excuse. So the phone call went something like this. Hi, this is Rick Scott with Keller Williams Realty in Connecticut. How are you today? And you know what, Kimberly, I'm going to unmute you. So if you would just play with me a little bit, be this agent in Seattle. Hey, Kimberly, it's Rick Scott with Keller Williams over in Connecticut. How are you today?
I'm great, Rick. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for asking. Listen, I don't want to take much of your time. I just expanding my referral network, and I was wondering, Kimberly, if you wouldn't mind me sending you some outbound referrals when I have people headed to Seattle.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, excellent. I'm curious, do you have at least 2 people back here where I am in Connecticut that you send outbound referrals to?
You know, now that you mention it, I don't know anyone in Connecticut.
Ah, see, well, this is your lucky day. I can be both of those people for you then. So would it be okay if I gave you my contact information, and if you ever had referrals headed my way, that you would send them to me?
That makes sense. I'd love to do that.
That sounds awesome. So you know what, Kimberly, I see your email address is KimberlyTapscott at gmail.com. Can I send you my information and have you respond with your own information? And would you mind me just kind of keeping in touch throughout the year to foster that relationship?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Send it over and I'll reply with my contact information right away.
That sounds awesome. You know, Kimberly, thank you so much for taking time today. I look forward to doing business together.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Right? That's not a hard call, right? And so you just, so what do I do first? I call and I offer, the other version of that is, hey, Kimberly, how are you? This is Rick Scott. I'm curious, how's business, right? If you want to be chattier, right? If you're more of a chatty person, I'm not terribly a chatty person. I kind of want to get the point done and move on. If you're a chattier person, you may want to ask, how's business? Or, hey, I see you have tons of listings. It looks like business is going really well for you. I'm curious. But what's the first thing I do? Do I ask for something or do I offer something?
Offer.
Right? So I offer something. And what do I offer?
Business.
To be a
Yeah, I
resource.
offer the opportunity for business, right? Why do I offer an opportunity of business first?
Because people like to get something.
Yeah, because who's going to say no to me if I'm calling and saying, hey, would you mind if I sent you some business? Would you mind if I sent you the opportunity for $20,000 multiple times a year? Who is ever going to say, oh, you know, I'm kind of all full up on that. Could you call somebody else? Nobody does that, right? So recognize that you have now an opportunity to get a yes back. Why, when I asked if they had somebody that they knew in Connecticut, why did I ask if they knew 2 people?
In case they have one.
Exactly right. In case they have one, right? It's easy for, if I ask Donna the question, so Donna, do you have anybody in my area that, you know, in the Connecticut area that you refer business to? Like, if Donna's been in the business a while, she's probably at one point sent a referral to someone in Connecticut or the New York tri-state, and it's easy for her to just say yes. If I ask, do you have 2 people? Now, if she does have somebody on the top of her mind, she gets to dive forward and say, you know what, I don't think I have 2. I remember that one person, you know, Maria, but I don't have 2. And so I get an opportunity. The other thing I want to mention is, notice I didn't say Fairfield County, Connecticut, New York tri-state, you know, Stamford, Ridgefield, Danbury. I didn't get specific about, I just said Connecticut, right? Connecticut. It's a small enough state that we can figure out somebody else. Let's just have them send us their Connecticut-based referrals, right? Let me ask you this. Can you refer a referral and get paid on it? Yeah, sure you can. Sure you can. So if Kimberly's in Seattle and she sent me a referral for Hartford, and I don't do Hartford, right? But somebody in my market center does, or somebody else I know outside of my market center, doesn't necessarily have to be somebody in the office. But let's just say, let's say April goes and shows property in West Hartford, right? And that's where this referral is from. If I say yes to Kimberly and offer Kimberly and Kimberly's looking for a 25% referral fee back, can I then go and re-refer that same person to April and say to April, look, so we owe 25% back to Kimberly, and the referral came to me, so I am going to look for a fee on that. So I'm going to look for 5%. So if you're willing to work with these buyers for a 30% referral fee back, we'll send 25 back to Kimberly. I'll take the 5, you get the business, and everyone's happy. See how that works? Now, do you have to step in and take a fee? No, you don't have to step in and take a fee, and yet you certainly can. It's one of those myths I want to dispel, because I oftentimes hear people say things like, you know, you can't refer a referral. Well, sure you can. You just have to have an upfront conversation, right? Maybe April's way okay with that. She would have paid Kimberly 30% anyway, and now I'm keeping my referral connection with Kimberly. I'm expanding my opportunities because I know people in the rest of the state, and Kimberly's sending me, you know, New London stuff and Hartford stuff and New Haven stuff, and that's not necessarily what I do, and yet I'm still keeping my hand in that for the future, right? Make sense? And then lastly, someone almost always asks, well, what if you ask the question, so Kimberly, do you have at least 2 people in Connecticut that you refer outbound business to? If Kimberly says, yes, as a matter of fact, I do, then you simply say, great, I'm curious, could you use a 3rd? Because I am applying for that job. Right? Here's what I can tell you. I did this all across the country, 30 major markets, 3 people each, almost 100 phone calls. Nobody ever said, yes, I'm all full up in Connecticut, thank you so much. Nobody ever said that, right? Mostly because I called them and offered them outbound business first. So when I asked, even if it was just to appease me, they said yes. So 1, 2, 3 in Seattle, and then you're done there. Then you move to the next major market. 1, 2, 3 in Portland, then you're done there. You move down further south. 1, 2, 3 in San Francisco, 1, 2, 3 in LA, 1, 2, 3 in San Diego, and you're building this database of agents across the country. I stopped there. And so that was 300 people, right? No, somebody help me with math. It was 100 people, right? 30 times 3 is 90. And so I added that to a couple of people I had met kind of locally. And so I had 100-person agent-to-agent referral database. And then I just touched them once a month. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Here's what I encourage you to do. Don't stop there. Go back to the upper Pacific Northwest and now go through the country again and find the 30 secondary markets. Right, so in the state of Washington, Seattle is going to be that primary market. Tacoma might be a secondary market. In Portland, you have in Oregon, you have Portland as a major market, and maybe Eugene as a secondary market. Moving down to California, you might have Sacramento as a secondary market, right? San Jose as a secondary market. So you don't have those major metropolitan areas, but you have smaller markets that you can find 30 secondary markets throughout the country. And then just do the exact same thing with those markets. And so now you've added another 100. So now you're communicating with 200 people. And then if it were me and I was stuck at home for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would then go and do tertiary markets. Find 3 people in each of the tertiary markets across the country. So now you're getting down to smaller areas. You know, you're not calling like the Bethel of Texas, right? That's not what I'm talking about, right? But I'm talking about so take Texas. You have Houston and Dallas and maybe San Antonio as primary markets. You might have Austin and Waco and El Paso as secondary markets. And maybe like, you know, I don't know, Lubbock or, I don't know. Amy, you might have to help me out with tertiary markets in Texas right now because I'm coming up short. But you see my point, right? Everyone make sense? And so now you have this database of 100 or 200 or 300 real estate agents that you're adding to. For those of you who are brand new to the business, that's your start, right? For those of you who are experienced, you already have a database of agents outside of the area that you've built over time by going to trainings, by going to family reunion, by going to mega camp, right? By doing business, you've built that. The question is, how do you communicate with those people, right? Are you touching them at least once a month just with a simple email? I encourage you to do once a month emails to that group. I do not encourage you to send local market statistics or don't send them like tips on home staging. Like, they're realtors. They don't need that crap. I was gonna say that crap. They don't need that, right? What they just need is, hey, hope things are well. You know, don't forget outbound referrals to Connecticut, 30%. Outbound referrals to Connecticut, 35%. You want to make sure they send them to you. Set up a system where what I did in my first year or so in the business with that first 100 people, I set up a system that after I asked for their business, this wasn't part of the phone call, but after I asked for their business, my follow-up to them outlined a program that said your first referral to me, well, 25% is pretty typical across the board. I wanted people to choose me instead of somebody else, so I was willing to give more away. My program said your first referral to me was 41%. The second one was 35%, and everything else was 30.5%. So just have a system in place that says to people, look, I'll just simply pay you more if you send them to me. I was more than willing to pay top dollar on the first one and then a sliding scale down. But that 30.5%, if people were looking for getting 25, I was way higher. And if people were looking at 30, well, then I was at least another half percentage point higher. So if they had to choose between somebody and me, they'd say, well, let's give it to Rick because we'll just make more money, right? Let's remember that a lot of referrals are about getting the job done, and referrals are about sending the money back to the referring agent, right? Those are the two things that are important to an agent who refers you business. Will you take care of my client and get the job done, and will you pay me? That's what we're looking for in a referral. So have some kind of a system and just drip them on a small drip campaign. It's once a month with, hey, how's it going? Be seasonal with them. Happy New Year. Don't forget, all year long, I'm accepting referrals in Connecticut. What I would do is I would make sure in the subject line of your referral, right? The from is your name. So that's the first key. The subject line needs to say something about referrals, Connecticut. That's it. It doesn't matter what else it says, right? Happy spring from your referral source in Connecticut. Because now every single time that you send that once a month, this is what's happening, right? You're just tapping them on the head. And what they see is Rick Scott, referral, Connecticut. Rick Scott, referral, Connecticut. Rick Scott, referral, Connecticut. Rick Scott, referral, Connecticut. Right? You seeing it? And over time, but just by that little tapping, you've now created mind share for referrals to Connecticut. Here's how I know this is true. About, I'm going to say 14 years ago or so, maybe 15 years ago, I met a real estate agent inside of our organization by the name of Michelle Edwards. Now, how do I know I met Michelle Edwards? Because for 14 or 15 years, every single month, I get a little drip email from Michelle Edwards. She just tip-taps my little brain every single month. And after about 10 years of getting that little drip from Michelle Edwards, who, by the way, is in North Carolina. North Carolina referrals. That's all I knew. And about 4 or 5 years ago, somebody in one of our offices came to me and said, Rick, I'm looking for a referral for one of my buyer clients who's moving down to North Carolina. And before they could get their words out, I was like, Michelle Edwards. She was just right there. I was like, it was like this reflex. And they kind of said, oh, okay, is she good? I said, I have no idea. All I know is that Michelle Edwards is who I would send referrals to in North Carolina, because she had trained me for a decade to have that response, right? Now, of course, the next important question I had to ask was, where is your buyer looking to buy? Because North Carolina is a long state and I have no idea where Michelle works. All I know is North Carolina referrals. And they said, well, they're looking to buy in like the Raleigh-Durham area. And I said, okay, let's go online and check it out. Well, sure enough, Michelle Edwards happens to work in Raleigh-Durham. So we connected those two agents. Michelle sold them a house and our agent received a referral fee. Why did Michelle Edwards get to sell that house to those clients? Because 10 years earlier, she put me in a database and just dripped on me over time. It was simple. It didn't cost her a thing. I don't even remember meeting her. She's married now. I have no idea what her new name is. I know she got married because I think it was in one of the subject lines. What did she used to send me month after month after month? I have absolutely no idea because I never opened them. All I know is that for 10 years, now 15 years, every single month I get something in email from Michelle Edwards. But I never actually open it because I just know it's Michelle. And in that subject line, she has North Carolina referrals. I'm happy with that. She's happy with that. But do you see the point? Do you see the power of just dripping on somebody over time until it's needed? Which is why I want you to go across the country and find primary markets, secondary markets, tertiary markets, and build yourself a network of people that you're going to touch over time. Yes, I know we have the KW referral network. I'm not poo-pooing the KW referral network. I say dive in as hard and fast and as deep as you want in that referral network as well, right? That's a more formalized referral network system that's set up for you inside of Command. However, my system, especially if you don't have a large system, because remember, the KW referral network is all Keller Williams agents. My system says find the top listing agents in that area. They don't necessarily have to be inside of our company. If they are, even better, right? Why not spread the love and keep it in the family? And I have also found in years of mitigating issues with referrals across the country that when you have a referral set up with somebody inside of our organization and something goes wrong, it's easier to troubleshoot that, whatever went wrong with another KW agent, because we all tend to think the same and respect one another. When it's somebody on the outside, it's been harder to troubleshoot, just being transparent. So, any questions about setting up that agent-to-agent referral network? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Did we waste 15 minutes? Tell me your thoughts.
Love it.
Yeah, this is Ninka. I think it's good, but but how do you know that that's, I hate to say a good agent, but not all agents work the same. And so how do you know that that's a high quality agent? Because just the fact that they have a ton of listings doesn't mean that they get them sold.
Yeah, you don't.
So how do you get the qualitative part in that? You don't know. Unless it's Keller Williams, then you probably have a better idea. But
Well, I think that the idea is I'm looking for someone who does a high volume of business. People who do a high volume of business, there is at least more of a chance that they will be of high quality as well. And the way you really know is you send them a referral and you see what happens.
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You send them a referral and you see what happens. But here's the point. I'm not necessarily asking you to build this so that you have great opportunities across the country to send referrals to.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to build this because I want you to be the recipient of all of their referrals.
Gotcha.
I think the better question is how am I going to show up for all of their referrals and make sure that I'm the wow factor. I bring the wow factor there so that they keep referring business to me. And oh, by the way, what I learned over time was just in that first year or 18 months when I was building this and receiving referrals, when I did a good job for one person that I made that call to, if that person was well respected and had influence inside of their office, well, now they started to talk to other people in their office because people looked up to them and said, hey, do you have somebody in Connecticut? I don't know anybody there. And they would give my name, right? So you start to get a following inside of some place in Portland, Oregon that you've never even visited because you made those outbound phone calls.
Okay. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would add you can kind of do a blend and go through the Kelly referral system to find those people to call using filters. And you can filter by buyers, sold and sellers sold and all kinds of things. And that's how you choose the people that you call in the first place.
Yeah, you can if you're using if you're using our system to find KW agents, absolutely skew them down by using filters on your app. But again, I want to be clear that they don't have to be Keller Williams agents, right? You sometimes can negotiate higher fees with people outside of our company, right? So I want you to build it based on knowing that this is another version of you creating a money-making machine on the side of you doing your listings and sales business, right? The referral opportunity is huge. Here's the last thing I'll say on that. For those of you who are brand new to the business, make this one of the first things you do, because what happened to me was I did it with the first 30 markets, and then I got busy. I started to do business. And then 21 years went by. I never went back and did it again, right? So use your I'm newer to the business or new to the business opportunity to know that you may not have a ton going on, and get this done. Make 300 people in a database your goal over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks. For those of you who are experienced in the business, use the fact that you may have more downtime over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks based on our current circumstances to recognize this as an opportunity for you to dive back in, use that time, and create this system for yourself so that you can benefit from it forever and ever. Amen. Questions, comments, concerns? All righty. I will ask a week from now who's gotten started on this. Because what's funny is that everybody in Ignite always says, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that. And very, very few people actually do it, right? Use the, remember this is, the Q version of Ignite, right? Everyone remembers that this is Ignite 2.0 Q, right? What's the Q stand for?
Quarantine.
Quarantine, you got it, right? So this is your quarantine referral tip, right? Build this system while you have the time so that you can be feeding your business. All right, let's move forward. Let's spend a smidge of time on social media because I want to touch on something that always creates a fun argument, and so I want to stir the pot a little bit and maybe get an argument started. So, social media as a lead generation platform. What's fun is that we now have a system inside of Command that will allow you to create simple Facebook or Instagram ads that generate inbound leads, right? Just by a quick show of hands, how many of you have done those and received leads? Right, so there's a whole bunch of you who have done that, right, and received leads. Now, the reality is some of them are internet leads, which means they're leads that you need to incubate, right? Incubating leads. Remember we talked about with the humps I put on the screen the other day, right? Whenever you get a lead, it's just a matter of you cultivating that lead from wherever they show up to that moment when they buy. And for some people that's 30 days, and for some people that's 3 to 7 years, right? And so recognize that yes, and Jody's underscoring the point I'm driving towards, right? That this is a version of client acquisition that really falls more on the marketing side than it does on the prospecting side. right? You're putting things out there and allowing people to come your way over time. And a lot of those people may be people that you have to cultivate for an even greater length of time before they show up as someone who is looking to buy or sell a house. That does not mean that all of those leads are invalid or not worthwhile. And it certainly doesn't mean that you shouldn't be utilizing this system to create opportunity for you. Because I know that some of you on this call have done some of these Facebook or Instagram ads through command and received people that you're selling houses to, right? That they show up too. Both happen. Here's the part that we get to sometimes argue about. I have witnessed people who, in the days where we actually used to go to the office. Remember those days when we would see each other in the office and walk past and say, "Hey, how's it going? What are you doing?" Because they were on Facebook, and the answer was, "Oh, I'm lead generating." Are you sure? Are you sure that's really lead generating, right? I think it's so what's been explained to me, right, by people who argue for this is, well, yes, I go through my feed every day. I'm commenting on stuff. I'm out there. I'm like asking questions. I'm posting cool stuff. I'm doing all the stuff on Facebook to make sure that my name and my face is out there. Like, well, so that's awesome. So to me, that sounds to me like what you're doing is either cultivating relationships or possibly fostering some new ones, but it's still all a version of marketing, right? No one signs a piece of paper to list a house over Facebook. So the idea of utilizing these platforms to create and or cultivate relationships, I think is awesome. Just be careful that you don't get stuck commenting on someone's peanut butter and jelly sandwich thinking that you're working on client acquisition, and thinking that having a discussion around the movies you saw this past weekend with a whole bunch of people is going to bring you a new listing client right away. You've got to utilize those platforms for visibility and for relationship management, and then make sure you're doing lead follow-up and conversion on some different platform, right? Even if that means I instant message Kimberly and say, "Hey, you know what? You mentioned something about perhaps getting a new job in Atlanta. Can we talk at 3 o'clock today about what your needs might be with the house?" And then I call Kimberly and have an actual phone-to-phone conversation around what her needs might be, right? So you can use it for stalking. You can use it to gather information and intel on people. You can use it to foster and cultivate relationships. Just don't fall into the trap of thinking that you spending all of your time on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn is lead generation for you. It's not. It's relationship management. You still have to create the client by asking some better questions and following up from a business perspective when necessary. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody want to duke it out? Because there's almost always an argument that gets started with that, because there are some people who are really, really firm on this is my whole Facebook platform. And I'm not making the Facebook platform wrong. I just want us to really call it what it is. No, docile group. This Zoom thing has its benefits, I'll tell you what. Because typically in the classroom, we go a couple of rounds on that one. And if you don't yet have a really powerful social media presence for your business, separate from a presence for you personally, I would absolutely make a note and make sure that you work on that, right? Companies hire people to make sure that their presence is known online. Right? If you're not known online, are you known? Period. Right? The world kind of lives online, so it's important. When someone says, "Hey, you know what? I think you should call Jody Boxer to list that house." One of the first things that people do is say, "Okay, what's her name? Jody Boxer. How do you spell that? B-O-X-E-R. Okay, great." And they go online and they Google Jody Boxer, and they read all the stuff about you. They want to see you on Facebook. They want to see you here and there and the other place. They want to see what your new glamour shot looks like. They want to see where you went on vacation. They want to see you, right? People vet people online. And think about the issue that it might create if someone said to me, "You should call Jody Boxer to list your house," and I went online and Googled Jody and got very little back. There's not a whole lot of presence there, right? Not on social media, not anyplace else. What might I infer from that, if that were the case, which it's not? But what might I infer? Do you think I would think that Jody had the tools necessary to expose my property the way my property needs to be exposed online, if she's not even doing that for herself? I would say my thought would be no, right? Do I have to unmute you, Jode? Hold on.
Unmute. Okay, so I actually just want to say that I actually have had people call me and say, "Look, I know that we get things from you all the time, and I know that it just on the flip side of exactly the flip side of what you're saying, that I have had people say, I get your marketing all the time, and I know that if you could market yourself the way I get your information, you could market my house."
There you go, right? So true, so true. So remember, you should write this down because this is an important statement I'm about to make. You are always modeling behavior. As a business person, you are always modeling behavior. And what I mean by that is when Jody's doing a version of marketing online or other, she's modeling behavior for people. She's showing people how she does it for, it's what she just said. She's showing people how she does it for herself, knowing that what they see is, oh, well, that's just a model of how she'll do it for my house, right? So be really careful if you've decided that some version of an online presence isn't important to you, you are probably not in touch with the buying and selling public of 2020. And if you're being referred by people and then you're not getting the appointments after you've been referred, there's a disconnect there. People are trying to check you out and they're not finding what they're looking for, right? So you need to work on that. Like I said, there are people who, my son's job is to do that for an insurance company, right? They hired him because nobody knew who they were online. If you drive up and down Main Street in Ridgefield, you know who Fairfield County Bank Insurance Services is, only because that's where they are. But anybody else, they don't know that Fairfield County Bank has an entire insurance company attached to them. So they hired him to make sure that everything they did created a footprint online so that when people were doing this for insurance services, all the stuff would come up, right? Now, admittedly, some of this is generational, right? My son is 22 years old. They don't understand what it's like not to have an online presence, right? I'm not 22, and I still struggle with it, right? For myself personally. So it's a matter of recognizing that if you're going to be in business today, it's not an optional thing. You need to have that kind of a presence. You need to be creating and cultivating those kinds of relationships online so that you can then bring them offline. Just because you have one online doesn't mean you automatically get business. That's not how it works. But having that presence online is a complement to other ways that you get business and may foster a yes or a no for an appointment, the worst part about it is by not having a powerful presence online is that you may be destroying your opportunity for an appointment and you don't even know that you're doing that, right? Because people are kind of typing in your name saying, okay, nope, next, who else? Make sense? All righty. Let's move, what time is it? Oh goodness, we got 30 minutes, look at that. Let's go through something that some of you are going to say is old, outdated, and passé. And I'm going to challenge you on that. And that's geographic farming. Let's talk a little bit about geographic farming as a source of business. What do I mean by geographic farming?
Marketing to a certain area and certain number of homes.
Say it again, Chris.
Marketing to a specific area and a specific number of homes.
Right, so it's a version of marketing. The geographic version of farming is finding a certain area that you're going to concentrate on and then mailing them. It's physical snail mail mailing them, right? Is that version of geographic farming. Here's why I think this is still important, and it's kind of interesting to have this conversation today, because for those of you who have never heard this conversation and before, or those of you who have and didn't take action on it, right now is kind of what I meant when I said it a year ago, or I said it 2 years ago, or I said it 6 months ago. Right? Let me underline what I'm talking about. If you find a geographic farm, right, you're going to find 400 houses in an area, maybe around where you live, or maybe when I was new in the business, I looked at where I thought my signs would be more visible for people, right? So I farmed all the busy streets. My career started in Ridgefield, and so I farmed Branchville Road, North Salem Road, Ridgeberry Road. I wanted all the streets where people drove on to be farmed for two reasons. One, I knew that everybody else on the planet was farming the condo complexes and the specific neighborhoods and you know, certainly back in the late 90s or early 2000s, the high-end neighborhoods, right, where because everyone wanted the $1 million listings. And I just chose to do something a little different. I wasn't, it wasn't lost on me that I was the new kid on the block. And so I thought, all right, well, I'm not going to go and shove my name in front of all these people who are getting stuff from everybody else. I'll just shove my name in front of people who aren't getting anything from anybody. And so to me, that was all those busy streets. Plus the added benefit was when I took a listing on those streets, more people saw my sign so that more people would start to know who I was faster because they were driving past my name and my face all the time, if that makes sense. So I did busy streets, and then I chose just kind of where I thought people weren't focused on. Back in the late 90s, North Ridgefield, Ridgefield's not a very big place, just by the way. And I can remember when I started, people would say, oh goodness, you have buyers who want to live all the way up north? And I thought they meant like Vermont. Nope, they didn't mean Vermont. They meant, you know, 11-minute drive north in North Ridgefield. Debbie, am I lying? 20 years ago? Right, you're muted.
I'll answer, you're not lying.
Thank you, Dee. Right, and so it was really funny. So to hear that, and when I heard that, I thought, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out some. I think that the streets I chose were about 200, 250 homes that where I decided to go, and I wanted another 250. So I went up north, figuring people think that's like way out of the way and no one wants to live there, and so I'll go do that as well. And so it's a matter of just designing that and then sending them stuff, and the stuff that I encourage you to send different from what I sent. I'll tell you what I sent in a minute, and I'll tell you my results. Today, I would encourage you, send things that people actually want. And that's one of two things in my experience. The first is data. Send them market data with pictures of pretty houses with market data, right? They want to know what's going on. They want to know what's sold. They want to know, what in that, if you're doing a neighborhood, what's on the market in that neighborhood? What's just sold in that neighborhood? What's the days on market in that neighborhood? What about for the town? What about for last year versus this year? Is it going up, trending down or up? Send market data because people like to know what's going on with their property. The second thing that I can encourage you to do is send something that shows a pattern of success. You should write that phrase down, pattern of success. And what that means to me is, are you telling people that you've accomplished the goal over and over and over again? Right? I was never a big fan, I'm still not today a big fan of just listed cards, right? My thought was anybody could list a house. I want to show people that I actually get the job done. So I wanted to show people that I sold a property, sold again. Rick did it again, he did it again, he did it again. Not necessarily that I listed a lot, but that I sold a lot because I wanted to send the message remember, we're always modeling behavior. And so if I'm modeling the behavior of I list a lot of homes, that's not the message I want to send. I wanted to model the behavior of I sell homes. I get the result you're looking for. When you're looking for a realtor to list your house, who's the guy who has all the solds? And I wanted to be that guy, right? So the pattern of success things that I used to send was just that. It was jumbo postcards with sold data. Right, and oftentimes it was my own solds. When I was newer in the business, I would borrow from people in my office with their okay, or I would send a newsletter with just statistics from the area I was farming to. So pulling new listings and sold listings of anybody, and then just sourcing it, being very clear that these were not necessarily mine, but they were sourced from the MLS, right? So just kind of repeating data from the MLS. I'm not saying go and take somebody else's stuff and pass it off as your own. That's not what I'm talking about, because the Code of Ethics says you have to paint a clear and accurate picture, right? And so if you're using other people's stuff, then just note at the bottom that not necessarily listed or sold by me or Keller Williams Realty, sourced by the multiple listing service, and you're okay to use that data then. I used to do a postcard certainly every quarter with all of the solds from the recent 3 months. And it was, again, just Rick did it again. Rick did it again. The one I used to send in September was, look what Rick did over his summer vacation, that kind of thing, right? So all that data just being pushed out with a sold sticker like on my forehead. That was what I wanted to instill upon people. I will tell you, here's some of the results that I received from that. When I was really quite new in the business, certainly within my first 4 to 6 months, I chose to do this really ugly, dopey, one-page newsletter. I designed it myself on my computer in Publisher. I printed it myself on my computer at home. I folded it. 500 of them. Folded all of them. I would love when my grandmother would come to my house and be like, so Grandma, you want to help me do this? She's like, sure, right? And so I'd fold them, I'd stuff them in the envelopes. Then I had a bulk mail stamp that I would stamp every single envelope, 500 of them, over and over again until I learned how to do it differently, right? And so what did that get me? I would send those out every single month, this dopey little newsletter that had some tips on it, and it had mostly market data, right? With pictures of anything that I did myself. So it had my own featured listings on the bottom. So that way I got to say to my seller clients that one of the things I was doing to market their property to more people was send it to 500 homes, in case someone knew somebody who wanted to buy their house. But I also got to utilize the mailing as a means of getting business. And so after 4 or 5 of these, so by month 6 or so, I think when I was in the business, I got a phone call from someone up on Hussars Camp Place, which again is in North Ridgefield, way up north. saying, can you come and list my house? And I thought, sure, I can do that. And I went and it was my first $1 million listing. And I took that property and they interviewed nobody else. Nobody ever asked me, how long have you been in the business? How many homes have you sold? None of that. So for those of you who are just starting out, please understand that those questions rarely get asked, rarely get asked, especially if you just develop a sense of confidence and portray yourself confidently, right? Sometimes it's called fake it till you make it, right? My version is just portray confidence, and those questions that you're so afraid of getting asked don't get asked. And so I went and I took that property, listed it for 1.1 million. After we listed that property, I asked her, again, please note, after the signatures, after the ink was dry, then I asked, I'm curious, how did you come upon calling me to come and list your property? And she said, oh, well, we get your newsletter. And I thought, oh, wow, that's awesome. Is that information that's been very helpful? Do you enjoy receiving that newsletter? And she said, no, not really. And I thought, oh, okay. So I'm curious, what about receiving the newsletter made you call me? And she said, well, to be honest, we opened it and your last name was Scott and our oldest son's name was Scott. And so we figured it was a good match. And so we called you to list the property. And I thought, okay, it can't be that simple. It can't be that simple. And in that scenario, it was that simple. It was because I chose to do something and put something out there. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't the most professional thing you ever saw. It was full of clip art. And it was printed on my home computer. It was not, trust me when I tell you, it was nothing special. And I took my first $1.1 million listing. That wasn't my very first listing, but it was one of my first three, 1.1 million, because my last name was the same as her son's name. Now, follow this story. So I put my sign up, put that one on the market. About 2 weeks after that one went on the market, I get a phone call from sellers down the street, still on that same street, down the street from this particular property, saying, hey, we just saw you listed the Perez property. We're struggling with our current listing agent and we expire in about 2 weeks. Would you mind coming and speaking with us? I thought, would I mind? Nope. And so the next day I went and I had a meeting with those people. And then 2 weeks later, we put that on the market for $949. I took both of those properties and I advertised them in, well, see, back then, we used to have this thing. It's made of paper, and when you opened it this way, it kind of had lines this way and had all print all up and down with some pictures. We called it a newspaper. And so I took those and I advertised them in the newspaper, because in 1999, that's what you did with your properties, right? And so put them in the newspaper, and a day after that newspaper came out, I got another phone call from someone else in that same area saying, hey, I just saw your ad in the newspaper for those 2 properties on Hussars Camp Place. I'm having a struggle with my listing agent. I wondered if you would come and talk to me. And I thought, okay, this is like shooting fish in a barrel. So sure, I'll come talk to you. And I went and had a conversation with her, who said, this was probably May or June or so of either 99 or 2000, I can't remember the year. And she said, so here's my struggle. I listed my property with this person who didn't tell me that she goes away for the summer. So she listed my property and she's like on the vineyard till September. So that doesn't work for me. And I said, well, so here's the thing. You're currently listed. Let me tell you what I could do for you were I your listing agent. And if for whatever reason you become available, give me a call back. Well, 48 hours later, she became available. And she called me back. I listed that property for $600,000. Are you adding it up so far? right? 1.1 plus another 9 plus another 6 is $2.5 million worth of volume from some silly little once a month newsletter that just happened to hit one person right. And the other people called because of a sign and some marketing. But what I really believe is that they called because they too were receiving my monthly stuff. They just didn't keep it or dial on it. It took the one person to dial on it and then these people to see the sign, but the name recognition was already there after receiving a bunch of my stuff in the mail. And then when I advertised them in the newspaper, that name recognition was also there for the third person to call. It wasn't as random as it seemed. I laid a foundation in this area, and then when one of them popped, that quickly became 3. I closed all 3 of those properties, right? $2.5 million worth of volume. Do you see how it works? And so yes, that was 20 years ago. My point is this. My point is, if you will find a 400 to 500 person farm and start to mail to it, if your main pillars of client acquisition, like maybe you're a huge open house person, right? You get tons of business from open houses. What do we know right now for the last week or 2 and probably for the next 4 to 6? What do we know about open houses?
Standstill.
Right? So if that was your big deal, if that was your main way to get business, you're kind of out of business for a couple of months. And so my point to you, some of you are big expired people, right? We're probably not going to have time for expireds today. We're going to do that on Wednesday and then move into our seller unit. But the idea of if you're an expired caller, every once in a while, there's an ebb and flow to the availability of expireds. There's an ebb and flow to grabbing those appointments, right? Sometimes they go on a dry spell. Recognize that when you're farming and you're cultivating a farm, I look at that as planting a whole bunch of seeds, and you just keep watering them, and they're all kind of growing at different paces. And yet at some point, if your main pillars start to skid sideways on you, or there's a world event that skews one of them as irrelevant for a while, like we're experiencing right now, you have something to go back to. You've planted some seeds. You have trees that might be ripe and ready to bear fruit. But if you start when the world comes to an end, you don't have the time, because farms take time to get cultivated and grow, right? So I encourage you, knowing that we're in the middle of one of those opportunities right now where a farm really would be kind of nice to have had 6, 12, 18, 24 months ago. I encourage you to recognize that and start planting seeds right now. It does not have to cost you a lot of money. Hey, Debbie, could you get what's his face's contact information? I can't remember. He's in Wilton. What's his name?
David Waddle.
Yes. Could you get his contact information and put it in the chat bar? Because I'm not sure if you're still using him, but I think he's a good resource for people, right?
Yes. Yes. I will do.
Yeah, thank you. So Debbie's going to put some contact information in the chat on someone that we either used to use or still use. I'm not 100% sure to take care of our mailings. And when you use somebody who knows what they're doing, they charge you a small amount of money to take care of it all for you, but they reduce the postal rates by so much because of how they can do it. They do this carrier routing, which is 100 times better than even bulk mail rates, right? That almost reduces the cost of the actual mailing to just your cost of the card. That the postage goes down so low, it's almost negligible, right? And so know that there's these resources out there to really help with these kinds of things. They, the proverbial they did a study a couple of years ago. They took 200 homes in Colorado someplace. And you know, in Colorado and other places kind of out in the Midwest, they put a wall around a tract of land and they build as many homes as possible in there. So it's like a little walled gated community type thing. You know, different from what we have here, where we have kind of eclectic housing and, you know, an antique next to a raised ranch, next to a mansion, next to a whatever. So they took these 200 homes, all very similar, except for maybe an upgraded dishwasher or an upgraded refrigerator, all very similar properties. And they marketed, they farmed to this neighborhood once a month for 12 months with lots of the same kinds of things that I've been talking with you about. And after 12 months of marketing, they went and they called through this entire neighborhood, 200 people, and they asked 2 questions. And the results were sort of fascinating. Question number 1 was, if you had to sell your home tomorrow, who would you call to list it? And so the mailing that went out, the marketing that went out was, let's just call him John Smith, right? And about 35% of the people in that of those 200 said John Smith. They would call John Smith. They asked a second question though, and the results of that were even more fascinating. I'll tell you why in a second. The second question they asked was, that's great. Can you tell us who sold you your home? And the fascinating part about that was almost 22 to 23% of the people who they spoke to said, John Smith sold me my home. John Smith was not a real person. They made him up and marketed to these 200 people over 12 months. So what's the opportunity there? You're capturing mind share. People don't even know who sold them their house. They thought it was this fake guy, John Smith, 1 out of 5 times. After 12 months, this fake person who didn't exist and wasn't in business, a third of the time got the nod as the listing agent. I don't know, that speaks to me. That says to me that we probably need to do a better job and utilize some marketing dollars to cultivate and develop an area that we can go fishing in over time. Because I'll take those odds. 1 in 5 thinks I sold them the house and I didn't do that. And 1 in 3 would call me to list the property when I don't even exist. Okie dokie. What are your ahas about that? Are you surprised about this farming conversation? Are you surprised we're even having it? Does it sound like it's like 1997? What are your thoughts?
Rick?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it's just about being in front of them, you know? Because I mean, I get some mailings from agents and some of them are really not so great, but I think it's just about, especially now more than ever. So even if you're sending a mailing, send some data, but if you can send, again, a positive message, I think it really, and getting back to what we were talking to before, the fact that you're not making a sales call, you know, when you're calling them, you're really calling about checking on them and making sure they're okay. So, and taking the business out of it. I think it's really sort of key right now.
Yeah. People want to be recognized, right? They want you to pay attention to them. So go ahead and pay attention to them. By the way, in the chat, Debbie did post David Waddle's information. His company is called RGI Communications, 834-1984, right? 834-1984. He's in Wilton physically, but he does everything online, so it really doesn't matter where he is. All right, guys, so in the last couple of minutes, I want to just ask if you have any questions about the things that we covered tonight in terms of source of business. What we didn't do was we didn't talk about open houses, and we didn't talk about expireds or for sale by owners, right? We kind of spent last time talking about your database and things that you can do with and for your database, and getting through your database. We want you to do that in the next couple of weeks, right? And I'll follow up with some database later on this week. Then we also talked about agent-to-agent referral networks. We talked about social media. We talked about farming. Ones that maybe we don't spend a whole lot of time on, which is why I wanted to kind of go work backwards today and really spend some time on creating systems that you can be doing right now, starting today, starting tomorrow, that makes sense for you to spend your time on to build your business bigger, to create more of a volume opportunity for yourself. And then on Wednesday, we will start with expireds. We will speak a bit about open houses, and then we'll start our seller unit, which means you will need to, I have to figure out how to get you some scripts. So I will figure that out in the next 24 hours and send them out probably via email for those of you who are not yet in our system, which means you're either guests on this call or you're a brand new licensee who is on before your license is ready, right? We haven't gotten you to the state yet. Just do me a favor and reach out to me, rick.scott@kw.com, rick.scott@kw.com, and just tell me your name and your email address, and I'll make sure I add you to that distribution just in case. If you're already a part of the company, I don't need that, but if you're a guest or someone who's really brand new, just send me that information to rick.scott@kw.com, and I'll make sure you get the scripts. So one last question we have, any advice on how to stand out in a saturated neighborhood? Dana, describe for me what saturated means. How do you know it's saturated? Okay, I'm gonna take, oh, here we go. So many realtors already sending out mailers. So the first thing I would say is, if you know for a fact that someone's sending out a ton of mailers in your neighborhood because you live there, then don't choose that neighborhood. Go someplace else. Again, nobody seems to want to farm busy roads. I would go and find the busy roads in your community and get the names and information on those roads and start farming there. all the ones that are potentially. So I have two answers. The first is, if you live there and you get a ton of stuff from other people and you know it's saturated, then make a different choice. I don't think you necessarily want to start being one of many, right? Go someplace else where where it may be less saturated. The other thing I will mention is, if in fact you don't live someplace, so you don't have actual proof that someone's sending a ton of stuff, recognize that there's probably less going on in most places than you think. And so choose properties, choose addresses, choose areas that might make sense to you. Like for me today, I wouldn't farm the high end. I just wouldn't, because what we know is that the high ends are moving more slowly. I would find properties or neighborhoods in a price point that's moving in a town that made sense for me, and I would farm the heck out of that. Right. For me right now, in most of our towns and cities, that 4 to 6 range, I want to be in that place. I want properties that are I'm going to list and sell, right? They're not stamps or pennies. We're not collecting them. You got to put them on the market and get rid of them, right? We have to move it and sell it. So, those are kind of my thoughts on that. Last thing before we go, Debbie is inviting you to, what is that, Deb? Thursday? So Thursday at 11 o'clock, tune into the Command Users group on this Zoom channel, and they're going to develop some record of success mailers online inside of the Command Users group, and talk about working your database in a number of different ways, utilizing the tools inside of Command. So we'll make that specific to this conversation, which is awesome. Thursday at 11 a.m. Debbie will facilitate that. She'll look forward to seeing you there. Guys, with that, we are done for the evening. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9, and then again back for Ignite on Wednesday at 5. Be safe, be well, and have fun tonight. Take care.